I have finally done it! I have beaten Elden Ring at long last! But now I have to wonder, what comes next for Elden Ring? I'm not the first guy to ask this, since there are tons of people who beat this game long before I did, and who are bored out of their minds looking for something to do. So a DLC for Elden Ring would be the perfect thing to save us from this boredom. And believe it or not, there are a lot of directions that the Elden Ring DLC could go based on the lore that the game hasn't fully explored. So let's discuss what the Elden Ring DLC could potentially be. I'm going to start discussing the DLC idea that I want to see the most, and it's tied to one of my favorite bosses in the main game, Godfrey the First Elden Lord, or some may know him as Hoarah. There is some really interesting lore surrounding this character that could make for some amazing DLC. Godfrey the First Elden Lord conquered many foes in his time. According to the Elden Lord armor set, he fought against the giants and fought some kind of storm lord. However, his grace was divested from him, and he was banished from the lands between. He took his kinfolk on a journey called the Long March of the Tarnished. This must have been an absolutely perilous journey, since it took a number on Godfrey. His axe was broken. The axe that we see in his boss fight in the Ashen Capital, and the axe we receive from his remembrance, has only one blade on it. But this axe used to be a double-sided axe, and it used to look something like this. This warrior's weapon was broken in a ferocious battle. I would love to see a DLC expansion based around this concept of the Long March, and this concept is highly likely to be true. The title for the Elden Ring DLC has allegedly been leaked. Now then, not all leaks are accurate, nor do they always come true, but the leaked title for the Elden Ring DLC is Barbarians of the Badlands. Oh yeah, the next adventure in the lands between will be on the Long March of the Tarnished, and we're going to see the land of the barbarian tribe. And if we're lucky, we will face the foe that Godfrey broke his axe fighting against, with the blade still buried into its flesh. Although let's be real, it's probably going to be a rune bear. However, not all people are interested in Godfrey, which it's a shame that Godfrey is constantly overlooked. No, the main demigod of interest in Elden Ring is Mikola. Mikola is the twin of Malenia, and the child of Radagon and Marika. We also know that Mikola and his sister have been cursed, Malenia with scarlet rot, and Mikola being cursed to forever be a child. We hear Mikola's name all over Elden Ring, but we see so very little of him in the main game. We don't even have his great rune. The closest we see of Mikola is in the Mogwyn Palace, in the boss fight with Mog, Lord of Blood. Mikola was stolen from his Halig tree by Mog, who desired to be the consort of the prodigious Empyrean. That cocoon that is resting in a pelvis and has an arm sticking out of it is Mikola. That doesn't look like the arm of a child though, but there may be an explanation for this. There are several places in Elden Ring where eggs are used to show rebirth, most notably with Renala and her egg that allows the player to reallocate levels. We also see numerous cocoons throughout Mikola's Halig tree that look exactly like Mikola's cocoon. This implies that Mikola was attempting to break his curse of eternal childhood through this process of rebirth, and I think this has solid ground to be future DLC for Elden Ring. Just think about it. After the fight with Mog, Lord of Blood, we get a great room that is just a PvP gimmick, a hand sticking out of a cocoon that does nothing, and a pathway behind the boss arena that just leads to a broken bridge over a chasm of nothingness. For such a major and out-of-the-way boss fight, we don't really get much out of it. This is why I think Mikola's egg could be the pathway to Elden Ring's DLC, acting similarly to the transporters all across the lands between, leading to a fully developed and reborn Mikola. However, this could be more concerning than you might think at first. Sir Gideon Ofnir, the all-spamming, expresses concern about Mikola's egg after defeating Mog, saying that it might be best to destroy Mikola's egg. He might be onto something, since Mikola is one of the more concerning demigods if we look at the Bewitching Branch item description. The Bewitching Branch is an item that will turn your enemies into your allies, and they will fight for you. You can smack them around and abuse them, and it will take an absurd amount of time for the effect to wear off, about 3 minutes. And there are only a few enemies that this doesn't work on. The item description reads, "The Empyrean Mikola was loved by many people. Indeed, he has learned very well how to compel such affection. This item description is very concerning, and paints Mikola as a conniving monster that drives people to do what he wants by enchanting them. This is pretty much mind control if you think about it. Mikola could easily be one of the most terrifying antagonists in From Software history on this premise alone. And if he was to use this technique after emerging from his cocoon, there is no telling who he could enslave under his control. It could be something as small as a few enemies in the open world, to full nations and super powerful champions to fight. In a twisted way, we should be thankful to Mog for stealing Mikola, since Mikola hasn't awakened in his new form to cause mayhem. And yeah, I think that Mikola's cocoon could lead to a fascinating conflict in some potential DLC, or some future sequel for Elden Ring. While we hear so much about this character, Mikola is only one of the many obscure aspects of Elden Ring's lore. There are tons of unexplained mysteries that could be repurposed into DLC, but there is one place that we hear so much about, with so many characters who hail from the region, a starting class from this land, and so many fun, overpowered weapons come from. And it's completely possible we will see this region in a DLC expansion. Yep, I'm talking about the Land of Reeds. Items from the Land of Reeds include Eleanor's Pole Blade, the Rivers of Blood Katana, and really any katana. This is also the region that Okina and his followers hail from. We also know that the Land of Reeds has been locked in a ferocious war that has drenched the land in blood-soaked madness. So a DLC taking place in the Land of Reeds would be an amazing expansion. If you are a fan of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, then you are likely hoping for an expansion like this. And if we get it, we could be seeing some amazing fights afflicted with bloody madness. Despite the sheer amount of characters and items from the Land of Reeds, Elden Ring focuses a lot on death. Not just in the fact that the player dies and is brought back to life, but in how death has affected all the lands between. There is all the stuff about Malekith being the vessel of destined death, and being abandoned by Queen Marika. And on the Night of Black Knives, Godwyn the Golden was only killed in spirit. He was buried at the base of the Erd Tree in some hope that he would be reborn. However, an undead sickness spread through the roots of the Erd Tree to all the lands between, and afflicted the world with undeath. This is all common knowledge to basic lore enthusiasts, but what about the more obscure characters and possible gods associated with death? Most people who have been exploring the lands between have encountered the Deathbirds, but there might be a mother to the Deathbirds, and an outer god attached to them. The twin bird kite shield depicts a two-headed bird, and the item description states, the twin bird is said to be the envoy of an outer god, and mother of the Deathbirds. The connections of the Deathbirds to death goes even further with the item description of Death's Poker reading, the birds are graveyard firekeepers. It is said they rake the ashen remains of the dead from their kilns. These all sound fascinating when it comes to the concept of death in Elden Ring, but the most interesting and most obscure reference to death is the Gloam-Eyed Queen. The Gloam-Eyed Queen is a character we know very little about. We do know that she was defeated by Malekith, and her goal was to bring death to the gods with the Black Flame and her Godskin apostles. With all this in mind, there is a lot of strong groundwork for a DLC based solely around death. And since so many of these characters are either dead or closely related to death, it would be really cool to go to the afterlife of Elden Ring to fight other long-dead heroes and adversaries alike. Reaching this afterlife might be a little difficult for the Tarnished, since the Tarnished are called the dead that yet live, and our character keeps getting revived at a site of grace every time they eat an axe head. Although reaching this afterlife might be possible through either the Prince of Death himself, or by accessing the first half-wheel of death inside the Round Table Hold. Yes, I know that the two pieces of the Mending Rune of Death come together for one of the endings, but remember, this video is mostly speculation about what the DLC could possibly look like, and what the pathways to the DLC could feasibly be. We could see who the Gloam-Eyed Queen was, and possibly even fight the Twin Bird. And as long as the Twin Bird doesn't run around and pull the same annoying crap as the Elden Beast, it sounds like it would be an interesting fight to say the least. These aren't the only possibilities for an Elden Ring DLC. There are many more mysteries in the lands between that could lead to additional game content. One possibility for a DLC is the domain of Eoshade, the place where Elamur of the Briar escaped from his execution, and took his iconic weapon from. There are also areas of the lore that could definitely have more explanation, such as the Albinaurics, the Numen, and the outer gods of Elden Ring. And please, From Software, elaborate more on the Colosseums and Gladiators. There are so many possibilities for adventure in Elden Ring that could be explored in an expansion for the game. But at the end of the day, this is mostly just speculation. Elden Ring has been out for a while, so I don't think we need to wait much longer to find out what the DLC will be. That might be good news to the Elden Ring fandom. Gamers have already explored all of the lands between, up and down, forwards and backwards, in randomizers, in absurd challenge runs, maidenless runs, and in some hypersonic speedruns. And that's not including the multitude of players who are turning their attention to older From Software titles such as Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. So yeah, I think that an Elden Ring DLC will be coming sometime very soon. But hey, what do you guys think the Elden Ring DLC will be? I would love to hear what unexplored lore you want to see in the DLC expansion. So please tell me what you think in the comments down below. I've got a couple other games that I want to play, so I'm gonna go do that. I'll see you guys some other time. Bye.